Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Oh, Captain, my captain.
I'm telling you straight, it's my way or the highway.
Oh, command me, Lord. Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Tell me something, my friend. You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? I always ask that of all my prey. I just like the sound of it.
I'll have what she's having.
You have chosen wisely.
It reminds us of all that once was good. And it could be again.
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious...
You're listening to the 30-something Movie Podcast. Classic movies, 30 years in the making. Hello, and welcome to the 30-something Movie Podcast. We are I'm almost hesitating to say the episode number, because we've had so many different things that we've recorded lately that are completely out of order. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it. This should be episode number 240.
You gotta start doing point episodes.
I know, yeah.
Or all the non movie episodes are like 0.4.
The non-80s movie stuff. We're on episode 239.1.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
West Wing Weekly will do that. They'll throw some randomness in there and they'll give a special number.
Okay. All right. It's going to start sounding like star dates if I start doing that, though.
You could do supplementals, too. That's what Mission Log does. They'll do a supplemental, which is an interview. It's not an episode podcast.
Okay. All right.
It's a thought if you're worried about the numbering scheme getting too haywire on you.
Not really.
Well, there you go.
At some point, I got to catch up with the Nerdist podcast. I'm not even sure they're still going, but I got to catch up with them, and they're on like episode number 900 and something.
He's still going, but I feel like he's renamed it now.
He renamed it a while ago to the ID10T podcast.
Yeah.
Because he and Nerdist kind of broke off from each other. I guess their whatever deal they had kind of expired, and so he broke off with his own thing, and then he was either accused of some things there for a while and stopped his show for a little bit, and so that and This American Life. Like I'm trying to catch up. We've only got like 700 episodes to go to catch up with them. So
at least 700.
And Action Comics and Detective Comics this year. I think Action actually was last year. Detective Comics just a couple weeks ago hit issue number 1000. So I'm like, I got to catch up with the comic books, and we're got to keep going at least until we get to episode number 1000, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Wow. That's ambitious.
I don't know what year we'll be in. Let's see if we're almost 250 and we've been doing this for 4 years. So what, we've got 12 more years?
Yeah, 12 more years. We'll be
very old. It will be 2001, so it'll be 2031?
Yikes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So in 2031, we'll hit episode number 1000, and maybe we'll just decide to stop the podcast at that point.
Wait a minute. What year?
2031.
We'll have gotten to the Matrix, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, I was sad to see it go, but...
we'll be building the Matrix, won't we?
We probably will live inside the Matrix.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No guarantee that we will get to Reloaded or Revolutions, but...
You know what? I'm not going to let anything bother me. It'll be a great ride for as long as it goes.
Okay, that's fine. I think that's a good way to look at it. Because who knows if we even get that far. We'll see. At least we got to get to the Rocketeer, and then we can get to the Matrix, and then we'll see.
The Rocket who?
All right. So fingers crossed. I think this may be episode number 240. Very, very quickly, we spoil the movies we talk about. We're going to talk about Driving Miss Daisy this time. So if you don't want to be spoiled, the title kind of gives it away. They're driving Miss Daisy. So if you want to be spoiled beyond that, feel free to keep listening. Leave us an iTunes review if you've not done that in the past. That really helps get the word out about the show. Lets us know what you're enjoying about the show. So please feel free to do that if you've got a moment. And visit our website if you want to see more about the show, get connected up with our Letterboxd account or any of our social media accounts. If you go to 30podcast.com, that's 30podcast.com. I am joined tonight by Pat Cantagallo. Pat, how are you doing?
Doing great, John. How are you?
I realized in one of the last episodes I referred to you as Patronus. So maybe from now on, since Bo is Love Fest, maybe you're Patronus.
I can take that.
Would you be willing to be my Patronus?
I'll be your Patronus, man. I'll come and ward off Dementors as often as you need.
Okay.
but don't feel like it needs to be like a consolation nickname. I mean, Love Fest, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So I mean, it'll happen. I'll get a nickname at some point.
I was just trying to think of something that might fit. So
it might fit. We can try it out.
Okay. Love Fest or Bo, how are you doing?
I'm quite well, John. How are you this lovely evening?
Good. Are you feeling the love tonight?
I am, as always.
Okay. I'm a little worried. Oh, actually, no. I mentioned one of the last times that Jeff and I were talking, and he kept trying to remember what your nickname was now, and he kept coming up with like, is it like Love Shack, Love whatever? And I said, and I forget what it was that he said, but I said, are you talking about Brother Love from the WWF? And he said, no.
There you go.
No, but that's a good one too. So all we need is a video of you, getting completely red-faced and saying, I love you, just like Brother Love.
Snap into a Slim Jim. Oh, yeah.
The cream always rises to the top, Bo.
It's true.
All right. Well, I think we need to jump on into This Week in 89 and then get going with Driving Miss Daisy. So this week in 89, it is the week of April 24th to about the 30th, 1989. This was actually a fairly busy week for some different events, some not so great events, a couple people dying, but we'll just go on ahead. So on April 26th, Lucille Ball dies of a heart attack in 1989. On April 27th, students in Beijing take over Tiananmen Square. On April 30th, Siskel and Ebert film their 500th episode of their TV show. So see, they got to 500 episodes. So we're about halfway there. I think we can do it. All right. April 30th, two things happened on April 30th. The World Wide Web launched in the public domain, and Italian director of spaghetti westerns Sergio Leone died on April 30th. Top book was The Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie. The top movie was Pet Sematary, and the top song was Like a Prayer by Madonna. All right. I think we're just going to jump on into our Driving Miss Daisy background information here. So Driving Miss Daisy came out on the 15th of December, 1989, rated PG, with a runtime of 1 hour, 39 minutes, directed by Bruce Beresford, who also did Breaker Morant and The Fringe Dwellers. And then producers for this one were Lili Finney Zanuck and Richard D. Zanuck. And between the two of them, they also produced Cocoon, True Crime, and Jaws. A little movie with a little shark fishy thing. I don't know. I think I've heard of it vaguely. Writer on this one was Alfred Urey, who did the play and the screenplay. Also wrote Mystic Pizza. Cinematography done by Peter James, who did Alive and Black Robe. Music by Hans Zimmer, who did Gladiator, Man of Steel, Dunkirk, and Rain Man. Budget was $7.5 million, and the box office was $145.8 million. Rotten Tomatoes critics gives an 82%. Rotten Tomatoes audience is an 81%. IMDb is a 74%. Letterboxd a 66%, and CinemaScore an A+. Starring Morgan Freeman as Hoke Colburn, who was in the Shawshank Redemption and Seven. And don't worry, guys, I will not make you do a Morgan Freeman impersonation this time. Jessica Tandy died in 1994. She was Daisy Worthen. She was in Cocoon and Fried Green Tomatoes. Dan Aykroyd played Booley Worthen. He was in Blues Brothers, Ghostbusters, and The Great Outdoors. Patty LuPone played Florine Worthen. She was in Witness and Heist. Esther Roll died in 1998. She was Idella, and she was in Maude and the TV show Good Times. And then Joanne Havrilla played Miss McClatchy. She was in Hairspray and Her Alibi. Here is the trailer, and we will be back in just a second.
My mother's a little high-strung. The fact is, you'd be working for me. She can say anything she likes, but she can't fire you.
I wouldn't be in your shoes if the sweet Lord Jesus come down and asked me himself.
I don't need you. I don't want you. And I don't like you saying I'm rich. What are you doing?
I'm trying to drive you to the stove.
You're speeding, I can see it.
We're only doing about 19 miles an hour.
I like to go under the speed limit.
But the speed limit's 35 here.
Nothing came easy.
Morning, Miss Daisy.
You leave my flower bed alone.
They didn't connect.
I just love a house of pictures, Miss Daisy.
I don't want you nosing through my things.
They couldn't agree.
You took the wrong turn at Opelika.
Well, now, you took it with me, Miss Daisy. And you got the map.
They wouldn't give in.
Well, I'll help you to the door.
Thank you, Hoke. I can help myself.
Now, ain't just some back of the neck you look at while you going wherever you got to go. I'm a man.
But from place to place.
I ever tell you about the first time I leave the state of Georgia?
When was that?
A few minutes back.
From season to season.
It's not a Christmas present.
Oh, no.
Well, go on, open it up.
Well, look at that. Ain't nobody never given me that book before, Miss Daisy.
For 25 years, they shared each other's lives.
You ought not to be driving anything the way you see.
How you know how I can see less than you can look out my eyes.
And touched each other's hearts.
Hoke,
Yes.
you're my best friend.
Morgan Freeman, Jessica Tandy, Dan Aykroyd, driving Miss Daisy.
Did you have the air condition checked? I told you to have the air condition checked.
I don't know what for. You don't never allow me to turn it on.
Hush up.
Goodbye. Good luck. Good God.
All right. So I will start off by saying I had not seen this movie before, ever. This was the first time I'd ever seen this movie. Was that true for anybody else?
Same here.
Wait, hold on. You hadn't seen this before?
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
This was like, I don't know, appointment viewing in my house growing up.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I know, and maybe just from other, maybe of times where I had seen like montages of, famous movie clips.
Sure.
Or other movies making fun of it.
Sure.
I knew bits and pieces. I obviously knew what this movie was about.
Oh yeah, and everyone has seen, that image. We've talked about it in other movies where there's shots from this movie that make those classic movie montages that you see on the Oscars every year.
Right.
Right. It's like when we talk coming up, we have Dead Poet Society. Well, same thing. There are scenes from these movies that are iconic, and Jessica Tandy and Morgan Freeman in the car it's just one of those scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I had not seen this one before. And Pat, you said you had not seen this one before?
No, this was the first time.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember. It's kind of one of those that.
This doesn't happen to me often, guys. I'm intrigued by this.
So basically, Pat and I are going to leave now and just let you take over the rest of the show.
All right, man.
Okay, so Pat, your first time, what do you think of the music?
I liked it. I mean, that theme, which I can't bring to mind right now, but that theme, I remember, I remember hearing this theme all the time.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things. It's been repeated and ripped off and used, and
exactly.
When I first clicked it on for my rewatch, I wasn't in the room when it started rolling.
Mm-hmm.
But I heard that song and I was like, oh, I remember this.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and talking about the music, I mean, that's something that, and I made the comments to my wife when we were watching this the other day, that it's funny to me how you go back and you hear Hans Zimmer from the 80s. And just in my mind, I just have this picture of Hans Zimmer now. And I'm picturing things like, I know he did Inception. Did he also do Interstellar?
I might have to look that up. I'm not sure.
I think he did. And he did
would defer to your oddly encyclopedic knowledge of those things most days. So.
I think he did. I mean, I think he's worked with Christopher Nolan a lot on some of those movies. He did the Batman movies. He did some of the Man of Steel, and so I think of Hans Zimmer now, which is very electronic. It's very loud. It's very kind of pulsing type music. And then you go back and you listen to this from the 80s, And it's like, that's not even, like, I can't even barely make that connection. I think of somebody like, I can listen to a piece of John Williams music or James Horner or, Elmer Bernstein or one of these other artists, and I can listen to their music and I can say, oh yeah, I know that one right away. But the difference between Hans Zimmer now and Hans Zimmer then is just, I don't know if it was that he had a style in mind and it just wasn't commercial enough back in the 80s that he had to have this almost very completely different style, and now he's getting to do the kind of stuff that he maybe wanted to do. I don't know. I'm reading into these differences in music probably more than I should, but it just seems more so than any other composer that I can think of that I've listened to lately. There's just such a stark difference between his early movie music and what he's doing today.
I think some of it might have to do with the style of the movie itself. I mean, 19 whatever Georgia, versus Inception,
right?
I think a lot of that has to do with
when they're driving down the road in the Hudson at 22 miles an hour. You're not going to get a whole lot of kind of music.
No, I don't think it's called for. Yeah, no. I think it speaks to his ability to inhabit the movie he's creating music for. As opposed to, I think we've talked about recently. We've talked about, I want to say it was Horner, who tends to steal from himself a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Hans Zimmer does too. But I mean, looking at the different movies he's done, he did Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right.
So, I mean, talk about another iconic theme, but that's totally different from the other things he's done.
Yeah.
I think his ability to do that, I think, is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, not in a bad way at all. He's one of the composers that I just look at and I go, I don't think that I could do what I can do with John Williams and James Horner and some of those guys. And I could pick I can hear a few notes of a piece of music and be like, oh, that's Horner.
Right.
Or, oh, that's Williams. And I think that's to his benefit, that he's adaptable enough that he can do these different types of movies and have it sound like almost a completely different person. Now, if I had a better ear for music, I'm sure I could probably pick out things that all of his pieces have in common, like something that is a particularly Hans Zimmer kind of thing. But I don't quite have quite that ear, so I don't seem to be able to find it when I listen to his music.
Just looking through his, not to completely hijack where we're going here, but just looking through his list of current composer projects, the top two that are currently filming, Dune and Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
Right. There's a new Dune movie coming out, isn't there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Denis Villeneuve is directing. Whoa, I don't know if I knew that. Jason Momoa is officially listed on IMDb as a star.
Wow.
I feel like I had heard that.
Duncan, Idaho.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I just want to know.
See, now I have a rabbit hole to go down later. That's not good.
Yeah.
I just want to know if it's gonna be a box of pain.
Yeah, that is totally a path I don't need to go down right now. Oh my god.
You didn't want to sleep tonight, did you?
No.
So we've now become the 30-something Dune podcast. Is that what we're doing?
Josh Brolin. Okay, I gotta stop. I'll come back to that later. That's a whole nother deal.
And Hans Zimmer is doing the music for it?
Uh-huh. Wow.
All right. Well, Hoke just drove Bo right off a cliff.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm back now.
No, you're good. You're good. But yeah, so seeing this for the first time, like I said, this was one of those that it has the iconic scene of obviously him driving her in the car. But yeah, I really like this movie. Like it was really, it was very, very well shot. The actors were amazing in it. The one thing I will say, both Sharon and I, when we watched this, and she had seen it before, and she remembered a lot of it because I think her grandmother really liked this movie, and I feel like they watched it several times together.
I think mine did too. I think that's part of why I've seen it so many times.
Yeah. But the one thing we both commented on was, and we didn't really, I don't think we really talked too much while the movie was going, but I had almost the exact same thought that she did at some point during the movie, and we both said this when the movie was over. When we were watching, when the Christopher Robin movie came out, the Winnie the Pooh movie that came out last year, I think it was, when that movie came out, it got a lot of criticism for being too slow. Like people were like, it's very sweet, but it's really slow. Like there's not a lot of action in this. There's not a lot going on. It's very slow. And Sharon and I actually got really frustrated with that. We're like, well, it's a Winnie the Pooh movie. Like, what do you wanted to have car chases? What do you expect? That's what it's
car
supposed
chases
to be.
all the time.
Right. A giant, Tigger chase that's just like the pod racing scene in episode 1.
Sure.
Just bouncing everywhere. But I kind of had the same feeling when I was watching this movie, and not in a negative way, but there were several times in this movie that I thought, wow, this movie's slow.
Mm-hmm.
And not that that's a bad thing. There were a few times where I almost got a little uncomfortable because I'm watching it, and the camera, there were several times that it was noticeable to me in this movie where the camera lingered on a shot about a second or two longer than I thought it would. And I was like, are we ready to move on to the next shot here? Are we, this is interesting. And it just kind of the way it was filmed, and I'm not saying that to say that it was a bad thing. Like I'm not criticizing that at all. It just was noticeable to me, and I was like, okay, this obviously, the feel of this movie is we're moving at a slower pace. Like she doesn't want him to drive faster than whatever 20 some miles an hour, whatever it was.
My husband taught me you use less gas if you go slower.
Mm-hmm. Who's paying for the gas? Who's paying for the car? So that was something that I noticed, and something that I think was appealing about this movie. After watching, after having gone to see Shazam and see all these other action movies lately, which are good, and I'm not criticizing those either. It's nice every once in a while to have a bit of a palate cleanser like this. It's just a slow, nice story. And I feel like you don't get a lot of movies like that anymore. It's like our attention span has been hyped up to 11, and we just don't, oftentimes I don't feel like we just sit and enjoy a slow moving movie.
Right.
But that's one of the things I really liked about this movie is that it's still, you had the progression of time. You got to see them together. And even though it was a slow moving movie, it didn't feel like it was an overly long movie.
It's not. It's only 95 minutes, I think. It's
right.
Not a long film.
You want them to go faster. I mean,
well, and I've sat through 90 some minute movies that felt like they were 3 hours.
Oh yeah.
And I've sat through 3-hour movies that felt like they were 90 minutes. And this is one of those movies that it was like it was a 90-minute movie. And it didn't move very fast, but it also didn't feel like it took forever. So just the way it was all put together, I really enjoyed it. I think
part of that has to do with the fact that you sort of feel like this movie should go slower.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're going slower. Their way of life is slower. Things down there, they just don't quite move as fast,
Well, they do, right. I mean, I'm from the South.
I was going to say, you would know better than even
things, life definitely now when I visited family lately and we've gone to, places like Austin, Texas, yes, things are still slower than they are up around here. But, when you get near the major cities, life moves a little bit faster, but you get into the country and things just, nobody's in a real hurry. Everybody talks a little bit slower.
Set a spell.
Just so yeah, no, the pacing of the movie kind of really did a nice job of reflecting both the time period and the region that it was supposed to be taking place in, and the fact that, and I kind of wondered about that too. I was like, well, I mean, these are two great actors, and I know that this is an award-winning movie. It's going to be pretty much the two of them together the entire time. So can the two of them just riding around in a car carry this entire movie? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, a most resounding yes. It was, and it was interesting how they touched on the race piece. I mean, it wasn't, and I know, you're asking for trouble when I'm going to make this next statement, but I kind of wanted to search and see, what was the reaction to it. It's definitely there, but I mean, like when the police officers pull them over and, just seeing how people, the fact that all the servants are African American, it's right there, but it's not like they're approaching, they don't really discuss it very much. I mean, there's just a couple of things like when they go to hear Dr. Martin Luther King speak and all that, but it's really, it does seem like a genuine friendship between the two of them. So it's kind of set within that. I mean, the movie deals with race, but it's not about race.
Right.
I mean, does that sound like an accurate description?
I think so.
I would say so.
You get the idea that some of her attitudes would have been totally the same, regardless of his skin color. Mm-hmm. Like some of it was just her, that she was older and she was kind of set in her ways, and she had a certain way she wanted things, and regardless of whether he was African American or white or whatever, she was probably going to talk to people that way, or she was probably going to be she's very particular about how she wants things done. And so I thought they did a nice job of that. The only time where it kind of took me out of that a little bit was I liked how they were handling it all, and none of the kind of look at the race piece of it I felt was too on the nose, except for when the cops pull them over. Mm-hmm. And then as they're driving away, the one cop makes a comment about, he uses the N-word, and he says, that and a Jewish woman riding together, and he makes some comment and talks about the two of them that way. That's the only part that I thought, I still get the same message if you don't have that little comment in there. Like that part I almost felt was unnecessary, was maybe a little bit too on the nose with the racism piece of it. I still get what's going on. Like I get the implied, the cops are here because he's a black man standing outside of a very nice looking car in Alabama in the 50s or 60s. So I think that was the only time, that little comment the cops make as they're driving away, that was the only time that maybe it took me out of that feeling of that I like the way that they were handling the kind of racial tension there. Do you have any particular favorite scenes or favorite lines or anything else from the movie? The cars were all nice.
Yeah, cars were very nice.
I'm not even a car person. I was like, those are some pretty sweet cars.
I'll tell you, I thought the scene at the end when he's feeding her the cake or pie or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Such I just thought that was just.
Is it when she takes his hand and says, "You're my best friend"?
My best friend.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think my favorite is when they're packing to go on the trip. That whole scene where he shows up and she says, "You're late," and then that whole sequence till Dan Aykroyd shows up, and then it just goes through. She just wants to leave. She's told everybody she's leaving by 7:45, but it's 7:16 and she's ready to go now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the bit about that, did you check the air conditioning? Well, I don't know why. You won't let me turn it on. Just that whole scene there is it kind of encapsulates the movie in that one scene. You see all the interactions with her son, and Hoke. You see a little bit of a microcosm of the movie in that scene there. And you even see a little growth because you can see that at that point, Hoke's okay teasing her back a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
And I like it when he negotiated for his position. Would you believe that they offered me? And just,
Yeah.
Name my salary.
And Aykroyd's got it figured out, and
Uh-huh.
it's just cool how that went. And then he says, I got to be honest. It's kind of nice having people watch you around or something.
Mm-hmm. You ever had people fight over you?
Yeah, that was cool. That was cool, and cool to see Dan Aykroyd in a serious role too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think it was necessarily, last week when we were going to talk about Dead Poets Society, we mentioned that Dan prefer. I'm guess we next week talk about Dead Poets Society. We'll mention that it's a serious role for Robin Williams, and cool to see him kind of stretch his wings in that area. And I think the same thing for Dan Aykroyd. Now, I don't think it was necessarily as poignant as a role as the Keating character was, but it's cool to see him do something that's more serious.
Yeah, definitely. This kind of reminded me of, and I off the top of my head, I'm having trouble recalling what year that is, but kind of reminded me a little bit of his role in the movie My Girl.
Yes.
A little bit more of a serious role. Kind of taking that. I think was it 90 or 91, sometime around then. But yeah, kind of reminded me of his part in that movie. Yeah, I really like this movie. For the first time seeing it, I didn't know what to expect. I knew it was going to be a good movie. I just didn't know if I was going to like it. Because I can watch a movie and appreciate it for being an award-winning movie with great performances and all that, and I'm like, well, yeah, it's a quality movie. I just don't know if I like it or not. But no, this one I genuinely, I'd watch just about anything Morgan Freeman was in. Every movie I've ever seen with him in it has been a movie I've enjoyed. So I don't know if it's just him, but just the story was good. The pacing of the movie was good. The music, the actors, all these performances, just an overall fun movie and a way of getting a message across that's not too heavy handed as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, and I mean, I guess it's interesting to hear what you say about the cops. That scene didn't take me out of it so much. For me, it's I'm going to compare this to The Butler with I forget the guy's name. He was in Good Morning Vietnam.
Is it Forrest Whitaker?
Yes.
Forrest Whitaker. Yep.
And so I kind of found myself comparing it to this, and I mean, I really like this movie. I liked the friendship. I liked seeing two all-star actors, really, carry this movie. I mean, I liked all those things. But what struck me about that scene when the police pulled him over was, I didn't feel heavy-handed. I mean, I know when you were mentioning the scene was okay. It was the one line. If I don't want to misquote you there. But when I compared it to The Butler, it almost seemed like what they did in the movie The Butler, because they were jumping through so many different time periods, and maybe that was the point of it, but they seemed to show a little bit more of the civil rights movement and so forth. And in this movie, it was kind of like they just kind of brushed over it. Now, I'm not trying to say that the movies came out at different times, and maybe in 1989, as a society, we weren't ready to kind of like see that. So maybe this movie kind of opened the door for something like The Butler to then step through. But I know I'm watching it in 2019, so that's the lens that I'm going to use to look at it. But that scene almost I thought was good because it showed a little bit of a maybe a little bit of a dose of reality to it. That there were these problems, and we're still trying to figure them out today.
Well, and that was not necessarily the reason for that movie. The reason for that movie was not necessarily to solve the problems of the civil rights movement, or to even have that be a vehicle for you to understand the civil rights movement better. I think you're right. I think what it is this is just a movie about a relationship between two people.
Yep.
They happen to be different races. They happen to be different socioeconomic backgrounds. They happen to be different religions, but it's really just about their relationship. It's not about, and I think that's why you get those different scenes where, yes, it's that stuff is going on in the background. You get the bombing of the synagogue. You get the bombing of, or you get the dinner with the speech. You don't ever see Martin Luther King Jr. speaking, but you know he hears it on the radio, and they're there, but that's not the focal point of the movie. The focal point is just these two people growing old together.
Yeah, and maybe, as you say it, in today's day and age, I mean, maybe this, you look at it, I mean, everything is so fractured, and everything is so, everyone is ready to get angry, and if someone says the wrong thing, or, I mean, that's done. They are excommunicated. They are out. There is no coming back from that. And this shows how that, maybe gives us a little bit of an example of, well, this is how we can all just get along.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there are some things we disagree about, but let's focus on the things that bring us together. And I mean, you look at that scene with the police officers, and in one sense, yeah, okay, it could be, okay, on the nose, they're taking a shot at him, but then all of a sudden, or even the scene with the police officer, but even the scene where the synagogue was bombed, when they discussed that, and it was like suddenly it started to dawn on you that, okay, well, they're from different socioeconomic classes, different walks of life, different. What do they have in common? Okay, they're two people growing old together. They're two people that in many ways kind of need each other. He needs a job. She needs someone to help drive her around. And, they seem completely different, except they're both being, they're both members of a group that's been persecuted, either presently or in the past or whatnot.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of nice about it as well. That this movie it can tackle those things and it can start those conversations, but it's not from the standpoint of this is what the movie's about, but hey, this is how it is possible in life to kind of put those things aside and let's all take a step forward together.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But I'm going to freely admit, and I mean, I don't want to just keep prolonging this, but I freely admit I've always struggled with historical fiction. And that's kind of the reason, is because people have tried to give me books, oh, you got to check this out. You like history, read this book. Well, what's it about? Well, it's historical fiction. What's historical fiction? Well, it's sort of like history, but it's fictional, and that's kind of what I struggle with, because sometimes I'll see that, and I'm like, okay, well, I get that the focal point of the movie is this story, but if we're looking at history, then show us the history. But then I know, and that's just kind of how I'm wired, and I'm not trying to judge or say the movie's bad or anything, but sometimes I'll like, that's cool, I love the story, but show me more of, open that door a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's, I mean, and that has no commentary on, that's not my commenting on whether it should have gone more, or if this was on the nose or not on the nose. I'm just saying, for me personally, sometimes that's something I struggle with whether it's movies or books or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. All right. Do we have anything else we want to say before we move on into 5 questions?
No, I think great movie, and if, like the two of you, our listeners haven't seen it, they should.
Absolutely. Go check it out. It's a really good one. Real quick before we get into our 5 questions stuff, out of 5, what would you give this movie? If we had 5-star total, what would you give this one?
4.
4? Okay. Pat, what would you do for this one?
Well, I either love it or hate it, so I'm going to say 5. But I mean, I don't want to just give 5 for everything, so I'd say 4. But I don't know if I'm skilled enough in any one area that I'd say, oh, well, I do this differently, or I shoot this differently. I mean, great actors and great cars, great supporting cast, beautiful story. Yeah.
I think I'd probably do 4.
Okay.
Yeah. It's now I've seen it. It's not one that I think I'd necessarily go. I've got so many other things I want to watch. I don't think I'd go back and rewatch it unless I had a particular reason to. I feel like I've seen it now. It's not one that's necessarily going to be a repeat viewing for me. It's not one that I'm going to seek out and just be like, oh, I need to go watch Driving Miss Daisy. But that's not to. I don't say that because I have anything against the movie, and just I've seen it. It was a really good movie. I really enjoyed it, and I have other things I'm going to watch now. But yeah, no, I'd definitely give it, for a combination of all the different things that we've said, I would definitely give this one a 4 stars. Morgan Freeman is great. Jessica Tandy is great in this. Dan Aykroyd. Just enjoyed everything about this movie. All right. Well, time for our 5 questions.
He asks each traveler 5 questions.
It's impossible to answer.
Impossible because you don't know the answer.
Nobody could answer that question.
You've got to ask yourself one question.
What are you asking me for? I don't know.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. And may God have mercy on your soul.
Now, as with one of our last episodes, 5 questions, I had a chance to sit down with Jeff, and we recorded some of his responses to the 5 questions ahead of time. So the first response you hear will be a pre-recorded Jeff Mazuka giving his responses to the 5 questions, and then we'll go on and have everybody else give their response to it as well. So, so that's, if it sounds a little different based on the editing and everything else that we do for this, then that's what's going on there. So our 5 questions for this time around. Question number 1. Over the years, there have been stories about people calling for an Uber or a Lyft only to discover that their driver is a celebrity, whether it's a DJ, NBA basketball star, U.S. senator, whatever it might be. If you were going to call for an Uber and get surprised by a celebrity, which celebrity would you most want to drive you around for a bit?
Tom Hanks.
Okay. Anything in particular you'd ask him or you'd want to talk about?
I just think he seems very real.
Mm-hmm.
My first thought was like, oh, Steven Spielberg.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But when you hear from or see Steven Spielberg in an impromptu sort of setting, he seems a little uncomfortable with it. And, I would feel bad that I was, taking time from his day or whatever. So, but Tom Hanks just seems like the guy, like, yeah, we'll do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, there's McDonald's. Great, let's go. I'm hungry.
Mm-hmm.
There's Best Buy. Oh, good. Let's go see what movies are on sale.
Mm-hmm.
Just whatever. Like,
yeah.
I think he'd just be a lot of fun to stop and just ride around with, and talk to, and have different experiences with.
Yeah.
This might have something to do with all the car commercials he's been doing.
Mm-hmm.
But Matthew McConaughey.
There you go.
I think the random conversation from an Uber driver fits right in with his shtick.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Plus, that voice will lull you into a pretty calm state.
Yep. It's kind of take a nap in the back seat.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mario Andretti.
I kind of figured some kind of race car driver would be the person.
Pat wants to get there now.
Get there yesterday.
Yeah.
There's actually a story of a Michael Schumacher, Formula One driver that his family was on vacation and he called a cab and they were late for the plane. And so he says, if you don't mind, I'll drive. And the taxi driver was like, that was the fastest trip I've ever been through Paris in my entire life. It was, but no, I think it'd have to be something like, Mario Andretti, or, we'll keep it to living. We'll keep it to living. Cause if you say, people that would have passed, that's impossible to answer. But yeah, Mario, and just,
that's awesome.
just hear all the great stories and all that. So
nice. Well, we do like to sing along in the car. So my wife Sharon's answer to this was Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Oh, excellent choice.
Because I think we've actually seen him on the James Corden's
Carpool Karaoke.
Carpool Karaoke, right? He was on that one.
Mhm.
I think with some of the other folks from Hamilton or one of the other plays on Broadway. So that would definitely be one. My original answer was Mark Hamill.
Good call.
Like I think he would be.
I
I
think
think
he's
he'd be
not going to say
hilarious.
much though.
Well, I think he
I feel
probably
like
would.
He's just going to drive.
Well, and that would be totally fine too.
Because he's there to do a job, man.
Right. I mean, he's quirky enough that he might just sit there and not say anything the entire
Exactly.
time. But I also do feel like he's kind of a, he'd be a good guy to sit and have a conversation with for a while.
Oh, without a doubt. It'd be
Mhm.
fantastic.
And I might not end up where I expect to be going, but that's totally fine
That's
too.
also true because he just messed with you.
Could spend a little bit of time with Luke Skywalker. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Number 2, a speech by Martin Luther King Jr. features prominently in this movie. Do you have a favorite line from one of his speeches or writings or, a famous quote of his?
Well, I've not done research for this question, so I'm going to say probably, but I couldn't tell you what it is.
Okay.
Well, we're talking about one of the most quotable men of the past century.
Right.
But I guess one of my favorites would be, but I know somehow that only when it is dark enough can you see the stars.
Nice.
I like that one.
I like, and I'm going to horribly misquote it, but I mean, I like when he says that, and I think it's talking about, just absolute, always putting forth your best effort. And it says something to the effect of, if you're going to be a street sweeper, then be the Leonardo da Vinci of street sweepers, so that, all of heaven and all of earth will, see you do your job and say, there goes a man that, is the greatest street sweeper that ever lived, or something to that effect. And it's very poetic. I'm trying to scramble.
If a man is called to be a street sweeper,
there it is.
He should sweep streets even as a Michelangelo painted or Beethoven composed music or Shakespeare wrote.
Yep.
Etc. Etc.
Yeah. It's
that's a cool one.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that one. Well done.
Mine, and I didn't know where it was from. I've seen this one a lot, but didn't know where it was from until I looked it up just the other day. From one of his books, I think from a sermon that he preached early on too, but from one of his books called Strength to Love. And the quote is, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that."
Yeah.
I like that one. All right, number 3, from something very meaningful like Martin Luther King to talking about betting, and this story was on IMDb. So this direct quote from IMDb. "So convinced was she that she would lose out. Jessica Tandy had a $100 bet with her agent that she would not win the Oscar for Best Actress. When she had to pay up on Oscar night, she told him it was the best bet she had ever lost. What's the best bet you've ever won or lost?"
I'm not much of a true betting type, because most of the time it does not go my way.
Right, I always lose, so I don't really bet very much.
There was one night in Vegas when Katie and I were playing blackjack, and we had a really good night. I think we walked away from the table that night up about $850 for the night. So that was a really good.
Pretty
night.
good. Yeah.
We went on to lose most of that as our trip went on,
as you do.
But I think the biggest loss that I ever had wasn't so much a number as it was experience, and that was my first trip to Vegas.
Okay.
It's such a glamorous trip, and it's highly touted in movies and TV shows. And everyone's a winner. You hear bells and alarms go off all over and chips pouring out. My first trip to Vegas, when I sucked the entire trip and came home definitely in the hole. That was a bit much for me to a little bit more. I wasn't prepared for how I was going to feel about that, especially like my first night out and just losing. Like I set a budget for myself. I didn't have much money at the time.
Yeah.
Set a budget for myself. I'm only spending this much a day. Went through that in the first hour, and then just decided, the hell with it. But yeah. So Vegas, Vegas highs and Vegas lows.
Okay.
Well, my best Vegas story. Well, I probably shouldn't say, but
you can if you want to.
couple spring breaks ago, I was meeting Katie and her family. She was running a meeting in Vegas, so I was like, "Oh, it's spring break. I'm going to go."
Yeah.
And my plane was getting delayed and delayed and delayed. It was like a 4:00 flight. We didn't take off till like 9:30. And I ended up in a row on my plane with 2 other teachers from other schools who were both starting their spring breaks.
Oh, okay.
And once we realized the 3 of us were all started spring break, the drinks were flowing. And I think I had 8 little bottles of Jack Daniels on that flight.
Oh, there you go.
So it was like...
Well, it's not like you're flying the plane.
No.
Yeah.
Got off the plane, and another guy that was sitting near us was like, "Oh, the party's not stopping." And there was a bar right at the terminal where we let off the plane. And he was like, "Come on over." He bought all of us another drink, which we all carried out of the airport into the cab to our hotel. It was great.
There you go.
It's a recurring bet with a guy at work. We bet every season that I bet that the Cubs will win more than the White Sox.
Mm-hmm.
And we usually bet lunch or dinner or something, and it is just very satisfactory to win and really lose because food's involved.
Right. I mean, you're going to have food either way.
Exactly.
So. Mm-hmm. Nice. Pat, what about you?
I got nothing. I'm not a gambling man, so I mean, I really don't have much that I've won or lost.
Okay. My answer is exactly the same. I do not bet because I'm pretty much guaranteed to lose. We do a family game night. We try to do it most Fridays. Where my wife's mom will come over and sometimes we'll play different games, but a lot of times we'll end up playing card games, and we end up we have like a set of old poker chips, and we just bet with those, and we just keep track of who won what, who lost what, and there's no money involved, but it's just for fun. And we have determined, my wife has said that she knows that she will never lose me to gambling because I don't win anything. So betting is not going to be my issue. So win or lose, I just won't bet because I guarantee I probably will lose. All right. Favorite movie with number 4. Favorite movie with the word drive or some derivation of the word drive, driver, driving, whatever, in the title.
License to Drive? I don't know. I'm not sure if I do.
No? Okay.
This was tougher than I thought it was going to be.
Okay. I narrowed it down to 2, but I want to see what you guys had.
I had Maximum Overdrive.
Okay. Good one.
I guess Baby Driver.
Okay. That was one of my 2, yeah.
Okay. And I don't know that I really have... I don't think I have much else.
Wasn't there the one I thought that you might have at least mentioned?
No, it was not good.
Okay. Have I picked the right movie?
No, we don't speak about, no. Yeah, it was.
Sylvester Stallone?
Yeah, we
Okay.
don't, let's just.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'd never seen it, so I didn't know if
it's no.
It's not good.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
All right. Now I kind of want to go see it.
Yeah. Right? No, you don't. No.
Well, I mean, I do see it gets a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's generous.
Yeah.
Being
Okay.
generous.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I'll stick with Baby Driver.
Okay. Fair enough. Mine was I had narrowed it down to 2. Mine was either Baby Driver. That was a fun movie, and just the soundtrack was great, and just it was just a fun movie to watch. Got a bunch of good actors in it. My other one that I saw not too long ago was just it may now be one of my favorite Nick Cage movies I've ever seen, and it's Drive Angry. Now, have you guys seen that one before?
No.
I have not.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. It is, take the ridiculousness that Nicolas Cage, the fact that he's become like a meme of himself. Take all the ridiculousness of Nicolas Cage and the character that he's become, and this movie just it takes all of that and just plays it all up for a good time.
Mm-hmm.
The basic premise of this movie is that he died and that he has escaped from hell. And it's his job to kind of he's getting revenge on the man who killed his daughter and kidnapped his granddaughter. And it's just, don't go into it with any kind of high expectations for it being like quality acting or even necessarily a complex story. If you just want to see cars drive fast and stuff blow up and just have a ridiculous villain, a ridiculously fun villain, this would be a fun movie to watch. So if you are a Nicolas Cage fan, at some point you need to check this one out.
Cool.
It's called Drive Angry. All right. And last question. If you were to recast this movie as a comedy, which actors or actresses would you choose for the Daisy and Hoke roles?
Daisy, I think I would choose Melissa McCarthy.
Okay.
Because I think she's hilarious. I think she has a great sense of timing. Hoke, I don't know. Like it would have to be someone that has very subtle humor. Like I feel like Morgan Freeman could probably play off of Melissa McCarthy just as well as he did off of Jessica Tandy.
Yeah.
So even though he's not a comedic actor, I'll still go Morgan Freeman.
Danny Glover. Danny Glover would be a good one.
Getting too old for this.
Getting too old to drive you.
Jamie Foxx, Betty White.
Okay. Betty White is on my list of... I had 3 women and 3 men that I narrowed down for this one. So Betty White was one of mine too. Pat, do you have any for this one?
Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh, that could be good.
Excellent choice.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to spend some more time thinking on the other one.
Okay. All right. Monica Bellucci?
Could be. The age might be an issue, but,
Well, she can wear makeup.
True.
Yeah.
It's a possibility.
Well, I had Betty White was also one of mine. And again, if this is a comedy, Betty White, I had one. I figured Kate McKinnon, she's wearing makeup on Saturday Night Live to look like old men half the time anyway. So I had her listed as one of them. And I thought Carol Burnett could be a funny one too.
Sure. Martha Plimpton would be good.
Yeah. For the men, I had Danny Glover. And then I also had Craig Robinson from The Office and Hot Tub Time Machine.
Nice.
And just completely out of left field because I just like to see. I thought he was hilarious when he was on Saturday Night Live. Idris Elba.
Oh, there you go.
I think that could be funny as a comedy to have him do a comedic role. And then I also threw in Morgan Freeman because we know he can do comedy. So if he want to come back and do a comedy version of this, that'd be totally fine too. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for our Driving Miss Daisy episode. So until next time, we've got coming up our month of May. And again, I'm only waiting on Dennis to figure out. He's still looking over the list of movies to see what he wants to narrow down for his. But in the month of May, the movies we missed month, and this is not in any particular order. Whatever movie Dennis picks, that will be in the mix too. But Pat, you have Cannonball Run, and then if we've got some time, we'll also talk about Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Bo, you've got The Dream Team, which I think is from this year, from '89.
Yes, it is.
Is that right? Okay. American Werewolf in London, which I believe is '81. Jeff had E.T. from 1982. So that'll be our month of May movies we missed episodes from the other years of the 80s, or stuff that just didn't make our cut for our episodes in the years that we've done up to this point. Beyond that, at some point within the next week or two, probably we'll have an Avengers Endgame episode, because most likely by the time this show comes out, I will be like a day or two away from going to see it, or I might have already seen it, who knows. And then in June, if you're looking ahead to June, we've got Sex, Lies, and Videotape, Drugstore Cowboy, Tango and Cash, Roadhouse, and at some point in June, we will hit our 250th episode, which Jeff will be hosting that one, and we will be talking our favorite 80s cartoons. So if you want to find out more about the show, go to 30podcast.com. We are on all the different social medias as 30podcast, and you can call our voicemail line if you want to talk about anything that you like about Driving Miss Daisy, or if you want to answer any of our 5 questions, feel free to call in to the voicemail line, do that, or tweet at us, send us an email, however you want to do that. We'd love to hear from you. So I think that's going to do it for this time. So thank you, Pat, and thank you, Bo.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
And thank you all for listening. Be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies, and we will see you back here next time.